Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Soul Goals. My name is
Yay!
Dawn. And here,
I'm Dixie.
woo, let's
And
go.
we're not in the same room today, so that's kind of sad, but that's okay.
I know. I
Not the
know.
same room.
I enjoy being in the same room with you. I
I know
really
I do too. So
So
anyway.
we're virtual today just because we're recording this over the holiday season. A lot going on, a lot of people in and out of our households, and a lot of stuff going on with each of us. So we
Yeah.
are digging into our soul goals today and calling today's attitude of gratitude. So
Love
this is
it.
it's a good one. Did you enjoy this week?
I did. I really did. Yeah, it was good. It was good. We had specific parameters over this gratitude practice. So that
Yes.
was a little challenging for me, but
Yeah.
the gratitude practice in and of itself, I felt like was super helpful. So,
Right. Me too. And I know you were saying before we hit the record that you normally do a gratitude practice anyway. So it wasn't
mhm.
much of a departure for you, but I'm interested to see because I felt the same way. The parameters of it were hard for me to
Yeah.
adhere to. And there was a day where I didn't get it done. And so let me just list what those parameters were to
Yeah.
help us with overall ease of stress and anxiety, as well as boosting the immune function. And interestingly enough, I probably should have started this earlier than I did because I developed a really bad head cold before, like the week before we did this. And it probably helped me get better faster, but I think I probably was a week off from actually doing this. It would have probably benefited me earlier if I would have started it a week earlier. But yeah, que sera, sera. There you go.
That's right. That's
Right.
right.
So our job was for 4 consecutive days, 1, 2, 3, 4,
hmm
3 times a day for 15 minutes at a time to do a gratitude list of things that just writing it down, things that we are grateful for, things that we feel strongly about in gratitude that are in our lives and things that we enjoy on a regular basis, just really bringing it all kind of to roost, if you will,
hmm
to this big, huge written out, getting it out of our brain and getting it down onto paper, and then speaking it out some too. Which
Yep.
I don't know, did you speak it out?
I did.
Yeah.
I
I
did.
actually felt like that was more beneficial for me than just the writing process. And I want to talk a little bit about that when we get into it. But
hmm
it was, I think the hardest part for me was adhering to 4 consecutive days
hmm
of 3 times a day. Like that's 12 times.
That's 45 minutes a day.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time.
Even yeah, even if it's in 15-minute chunks, if you look at the amount of time that you have in your day that's not allotted to taking care of anybody, a job, whatever. So if you look at that, that's a big chunk of your free time. That's 45 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that for me was the hardest part about it because I felt like looking at the clock, I just kept going, oh my God, it's got to be at least because I was like, okay, I'm going to write for 10 minutes and then I'm going to speak for 5 continuous minutes. I was like, I can wrap my brain around doing something like that.
hmm
So that was my game plan. And I just kept looking. I was writing furiously. I
hmm
like, didn't come up for air when I was writing, but I looked and I was like, oh my God, I've only been writing for like 5 minutes.
Right.
What's going
That's
on
right.
here? What is
That's
going on
right.
here? Why is it so hard for me to do that? And I think for me it was just slowing down process to
hmm
actually do the task,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. Well, I have a morning routine that I do, and I really try to do it every single morning. I am not perfect, but I'm way better on the days where I don't have to go to work super early or that I'm off. But
Right.
on those mornings that I have to be at the restaurant at 7 a.m., like that means I'm getting up at like 4:45 or 5 o'clock, and that's
Mhm.
super early. But I did that on I can't remember what day it was, but I opened to the restaurant and I was like, well, this is smack in the middle of this gratitude practice. So I gotta get up at freaking 5 o'clock. So
Oh,
but interestingly enough, that was one of the days. Well, my morning routine typically involves a gratitude practice,
yeah.
not 15 minutes. I mean, it's like I list 3 to 5 gratitudes. I have affirmations that I say. I do some kind of visualizing of kind of some goals that I want to achieve in the next. Right now it's the new year, so we're all looking towards like what we want to achieve in the new year. But I so I do that. I do some reading. So it takes me about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 to do all of it.
Right.
And so I sat down in the morning and just set a timer for the 15 minutes to do the gratitude, just the writing. I
Mhm.
did one day where I wrote, I did some of them where I spoke the whole 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And then I did some that where I was typing on the notes. So I'm typing on my iPad,
Yeah.
and that seemed to be longer because I type a lot faster. Right?
Okay.
So I was like,
Like
wow, this
like
is
on
going
your phone?
no,
You mean?
on my iPad,
A
I have a
keyboard.
keyboard, a
Yeah.
keyboard.
Okay.
So it would be like being on a computer.
Yeah.
Um, because I've started this kind of journaling thing on there. So I was like, well, I'll type today.
Yeah.
And the typing was probably the most felt like it took the longest, was the most challenging
Yeah.
because I type really fast. And not that I don't have a lot to be thankful for, but I feel like when you like are sitting there and you start naming things,
Mhm.
and they didn't always have to be big. Like, of course, I'm thankful for my family. Of course, I'm thankful for like the big things in life.
Right.
But it did cause me to look at like little things that I don't really take note of all the time. So
Yeah.
that was pretty cool about the 15 minutes, that it made you step outside of the obvious and
Yeah.
look at some things that maybe not quite are so obvious,
Yeah.
So
It was a huge
yeah.
perspective shift for me because I did the
Mhm.
same thing. I found myself writing the same generally same things like the things that my family, my house, my job, my health, like
Mhm.
my dogs, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
like all those different things. But I think as I went through some of those things fine tuned a little bit more for me, I I think it's a perspective shift. For me, it was a perspective shift. And
Mhm.
again, I think the thing that this year has been teaching me so far, I listened back to a couple of our podcasts over our holidays, and
Yeah.
I think for me, the general theme has been slowing down.
Oh,
And
for sure.
yeah, slowing down for so many of us, like I'm just looking at myself in the mirror. Hi, Dawn. Hi. Hi. Slowing down is so hard to do in the society that we're in. So this was a huge take of time for me. And I think really understanding that it's worth taking that time
Mhm.
to put those things in perspective and to really give yourself a kind of a checkup from the neck up, if you will.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes we take that stuff
Yeah.
for granted. Like I know I take my health for granted. I know I take the fact that I live in a house with a roof on it that doesn't leak.
Mhm.
I take that for granted,
Mhm.
like those simple things. Um, I want to say that the reading out loud though was really, really, really good for me. Um,
Mhm.
old therapy that I've had in the past found some mirror therapy where I had to actually read some affirmations in person, looking myself in the eyeballs in a mirror.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
let me just tell you how hard that was the first time I ever did that.
Right.
Yeah. So this was not that challenging because I'm a little bit older. I'm a little bit, yeah, I'm a lot further down the road with
Oh,
my,
heck yeah. Especially because, I mean, probably at that time in your life when you were looking in the mirror, there's so many things that come up that you've outgrown, but I
yeah,
mean, are not outgrown. You've grown through them and you're not dealing with those things anymore. But I
yeah,
would venture to say there's a lot of people that when they look in the mirror, it's really hard to be thankful or say affirmations because they feel like shame or guilt or fear or all these things that
mm,
are going on and they don't feel
mhm,
worthy of the words. So I can see where that would be super challenging for some, yeah, or
yeah,
probably for everybody in one sense of the way, and one sense of the
absolutely.
other, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But giving like voice to those pieces of gratitude was interestingly not hard, but d- challenging. I don't know if that's even the right word. It wasn't hard to do. Maybe it was just really enlightening.
There you go.
Enlightening. Yeah, I think it was enlightening because I feel like it's just something we don't do,
Hmm.
and I know there are different people that follow the manifestation situation where you write it down and then you verbalize it and then you visualize it. So all the different aspects of manifestation. So for me, this may have been a little bit of that. It's like manifesting more of that, more
Yeah.
gratitude, manifesting more graciousness, more thankfulness in our lives.
Hmm.
And I feel like I'm a pretty thankful person. I feel like I'm pretty filled with that for what it is that
Hmm.
I get to do on a daily basis. But I think that we all have the ability to tap into that deeper well within inside of us. And I think part of it is being thankful for myself
Hmm.
and what I bring. And I think that was probably the underlying thing.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And realizing, I call it taking your power back. You're like, you know what?
Yes.
I am supposed to be on this planet. I have a lot to offer, and
Hmm.
it for me, it's been this past year of like the whole year of 2024 has been a super challenging year for me personally. I've been through a ton of I've been just working through a ton of grief that in different areas of life,
Yeah.
um, and like seasons ending and new season, just a lot of change going on, and I realized in this gratitude practice, it was almost like it was so empowering. Like I'm like, you know what? It's almost like it says, I think it says in Proverbs or Psalms in the Bible, it says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick." It's almost like when you're grateful, you you kind of ignite hope inside yourself, and hope brings life. Hope. I don't think things like shame and things like guilt have a hard time overpowering you when you're being led by hope or
Yeah.
gratitude. I mean, we all still have to deal with that because we all got things, but um, I found that really kind of like almost I felt lighter,
Oh, I
after,
love it.
yeah, after, and I think that's why I do it not 15 minutes, but I do, 3 to 5 every single morning, and they can be little. Like I'm thankful for this warm cup of coffee that tastes
Yeah.
so yummy, or I'm
Yes.
thankful that to see the sun peeking out. But one of the things that was so cool to me that the morning I had to get up super early, I got up and my husband got up too, and I was like, "What are you doing? You're getting up so early." He goes, "Well, I thought I'd get your coffee going for you." I was like,
Oh,
"Well, look at there." It just blew me away. And I was like, "Well, look, there's something I'm going to write down on my little
yeah.
thankful thing."
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love
it was
it.
really sweet. So I
Oh,
think I think too the more gratitude that we have in our own life, I think that things like goodness comes back to you, kind of like you reap kind of what you sow. So sowing gratitude, you're gonna see that start to show up in
right.
other ways in your own life. But
And you brought up hope and shame, and
mm-hmm,
I I don't believe the two of them can exist in the same on the same
mm-mm,
page.
right,
You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
either. Mm-hmm,
Like, and that hope brings life. Hope
mm-hmm,
ignites life. And I think by going deeper under this gratitude well, if you will,
mm-hmm,
that we can find those pieces of hope. I know for me, that was a really big aha of wow, deserving. Do I
mm-hmm.
really deserve to have this great dog? you know,
Right,
or
no, for sure, yeah.
great blanket that I'm using, or to live in the house that I live in, or
Yeah.
I think that understanding what that drive is underneath for each one of us is a really big piece of healing and brings us a really big opportunity to grow
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
for sure.
look closer at what's going on with us. I think that I love what you said. Hope ignites, it brings life. It ignites life.
Hmm. Well,
And this
if hope deferred, if you're just if being hopeless or hope deferred is going to make you sick, it does.
oh,
You know,
yeah.
the flip side would be true that having hope brings life. Because you mentioned before we started this exercise that there were studies about this particular way to do it. There,
Mhm.
it's so great for your immune health, and that had
Yeah.
me thinking um, about how things like shame and things like guilt and depression and things that are very real, those heavy things, they do make people more sick.
Yeah.
Um, and physically too, like your
Yeah.
physical body and your mental state or whatever, um, is they're so related. Our guts, like our second brain, so everything's related.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that
Yeah.
gratitude would improve our mindset, which therefore turns around and improves our physical state, you know?
Absolutely. And
So,
that was
yeah.
that's such a big thing. And I love that you brought that up because I think hope deferred. I love that. I love that
Hmm.
phrase. Yeah. That's real. So real. So
Hmm.
real. I think that that anxiety and the depression and the things that I think that we experience depending upon the season of our life, because I know all of us walk through those different emotions and those different issues at some point in our life, whether it is 10% or 99%. I think
Hmm.
we all have those experiences to help us understand ourselves a little bit more. And that may mean some of us experience it bigger, some of us experience it lesser, and there's no barometer for it. There's no right and
Hmm.
wrong. I think that those feelings can become so laborious and cumbersome for us that they tend to sit in our bodies and they sit in our brains. And like, I love that you said the gut to brain.
Hmm.
It's huge. It's a big
Yeah.
thing. That's a huge scientific thing too.
Hmm.
So we're talking about this gratitude offering for us to be well and for us to feel good from that gut to brain balance, if you will. That it's so true. It makes
Hmm.
sense. And the things that we house and we hold on to on our body just are are bringing us into a place where we are not really thriving at the best that we could be. And you
Right.
know what? Maybe thriving for you means you call your doctor and you talk to them about what medication will help you.
Hmm.
Maybe thriving means you call a friend and say, "Hey, can we have coffee?" Or maybe thriving means you text someone, "I just need 8 minutes." You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, everybody's thriving is a little bit different. But I think if we go back to this gratitude thing, like you were talking about how the whole health aspect affects it and the unique science behind it, um, it's definitely a pro. It's definitely there. The gut and brain. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. And I was reading somewhere, excuse me, it was like years ago, where they took chronically ill folks in a hospital, or it could be cancer or whatever, and they were relating the um the rate of like going into remission with
Yeah,
your mindset, and that your ability to be grateful and carry joy and feel worthy, and that people that came in and were just like, it's over, there's nothing they said there's nothing they can do, it's over, I'm just going to lay here, and how it was almost like you were deciding. I
yeah,
know that that's not the case for everybody. I've had, um, I'm not saying that that's the case for everybody. I'm certainly not pigeonholing anything, but there was a study done or evidence or something to relate that positive mindset,
yeah.
and that that realizing that things are bigger than we are, that there's something else at work that helped people move through like what could have been a really, or was a really scary time,
Yeah.
to like a place of remission or health, or fill in the blank. So that's interesting too.
Yeah. I think there's always a place, even in our darkest moments, there's always a fraction of something that we can find gratitude for.
Hmm.
And I'm going to just go on record and say, for me, in some of my darkest places, that's been that my body is taking another breath
Hmm.
without
Oh
me
yeah.
asking it to. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like I'm grateful for the next breath I get to take because
Right.
my body's automatically doing it. When I can't think of anything else that I'm grateful for, when I'm in that deep pit of blah, if you
Hmm.
will,
Hmm.
like, what is one thing I can be grateful for? That's the one thing I can be grateful for. And it's hard to do that in that moment. And it takes a lot of self worth understanding. Like,
Hmm.
I'm worthy to take the next breath. I'm worthy to have these things. I'm worthy self worth, right? That self
Hmm.
esteem point. And we all have to get to that point. Yeah, I guess on our own path.
Hmm.
But knowing that we have people around us that can help along the way, that can walk alongside us, that can offer little tidbits. Like, I love the things that you said today, Dixie. I just really, really do. I think there's so many pieces of joy and benefit in the stuff that you said so far today. So I
Oh,
just
that's
I
awesome.
just want to say thank you for that
Oh,
because Yeah, like even in the darkest points, we
Hmm.
can find a piece of gratitude. And that
Oh, absolutely.
there's something bigger. I mean, you just mentioned it. Like there's something bigger than just ourselves. There's something
Hmm.
bigger, a larger force at work. And you can call that faith, you can call that spirit, you can call that God, you can
Hmm.
call that Mother Mary, you can call that spirituality as a whole, you can call it whatever your connection
Hmm.
to that greater force is. That's what really matters is your connection to that. No one else's.
Hmm.
It's your personal connection.
You
And
said that sometimes the very thing I'll just be like, I'm grateful I'm just breathing because my body just knows how to do that. And it made me think that, I mean, no matter where you find yourself, you collective, like the collective us, the you, um, where we find ourselves is pretty amazing because we're all like miracles, if you will.
yeah,
We sleep at night and our body just knows to wake us up. It knows to breathe. It knows to do all the things it's supposed to do. It's just, we've just been created so intricately and so differently.
yeah,
Um, and it's a beautiful thing that we're all here coexisting and doing this thing that sometimes is really hard and sometimes is really delightful, but um, just that it's just we're all just everybody you meet. It's just this tiny little miracle, you
right.
know?
Yeah. And that's something to be grateful for.
Absolutely,
Yeah. And I think that's part of,
absolutely.
well, I think that's part of for me that perspective, like that the larger perspective for me. So there was pieces on one day there was pieces of like um fine tuning my perspective, getting down
Hmm.
to the tiny parts. And then there's one day of finding the balance and finding the bigness of the perspective, like
Hmm.
from what we're just
Hmm.
talking about now. The, let me just go backwards. Do you think that this is something, I know you have a gratitude practice. Do you think that this is something that would change your gratitude practice moving forward? Or do you feel like what you have established for yourself is something that's pretty foundationally sound for you?
I think what I do is pretty sound and foundationally sound, but taking the taking the time to kind of expand it a little bit, um, and make it a more significant part of the day was really cool for that period of time. And it
Yeah.
may be that people go through stuff and they're like, okay, no, I gotta stop. I gotta put the brakes on and just realign, figure out what's going on and just my go-to anytime I'm going through a hard time is to get by myself and say, okay, everything's flying at me. There's so much negative going on. What am I, where's the gratitude? And then I sit down
Yeah.
and I mean, that's just my go to is to be grateful because I think too, however it looks for you, it might not look like 15 minutes 3 times a day because that's a lot of time. And,
Right.
but it's a lot of time. But then if you look in the grand scheme of life, it's probably not a lot of time. It's just your perspective on it. For
Right.
me, it was a chunk of time. And because of my work schedule and I take care of a parent in my home that's elderly and not well. And I've got 2 kids home from college and I have a husband who travels overseas who's home right now. And so we're all here. And so it's just work and family and all the things. So when there's time in my day for me, I treat those minutes very, very, they're precious to me.
Right.
So
Right.
45 of those, it's a lot of time.
It's a big
So,
deal. Yeah.
yeah, for me, I mean, I feel like it is for everybody in this day and time. 45 minutes is a long time.
Right.
Um,
Agreed.
but what I have discovered with gratitude is that it makes you more aware um, of where other people need things or where other people are in need. Um, and just a quick example, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but like during these 4 days that we did this, I was just zipping in Kroger to grab a few things for dinner. And when I got in there, I grabbed everything I needed and I was going to go to the self check and I was like, oh, do we have butter? I had that thought of, oh,
Yeah.
do we have this? Because I was baking sweet potatoes, so I knew people would want butter on their sweet potato. I was
Yeah.
like, how much butter do I have? Okay, I don't know. So I walked back and I got some butter, which feels very insignificant. Came
Okay.
back to the self check and just I just noticed a lady and I just noticed her and she was struggling at the moment and I went ahead and checked out and did my thing and went to walk out and I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave. because she
Mm.
was still in there. And so anyway, I just turned around and went back, and I said, "Are you okay?" And she looked at me, and then she just started talking, and I was able to help her. But I feel like when you have when you have an attitude, if you will, of gratitude or a thankfulness kind of practice, it sort of takes you out of selfishness, and it makes you more aware of what's going on around you.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like the introverts listening would be like, you walked up to somebody and said, "What?" But uh, or the shy people or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all I did was say, "Hey, are you okay?" And
Yeah.
she looked at me and she was like, "Well, actually," and and it was a very significant moment. And um, she hugged me, and we just had this like
Oh,
interaction that was very meaningful. And that may sound weird to folks, but I feel like if we're always just so like, what can I get? What can I do? What serves me? What this, what that? We miss a lot of things going on in the peripheral. We miss
right.
a lot of opportunities that we have to give other people things to be grateful for.
Right, right.
You
I
know?
totally agree with you. And I love, thank you for sharing that experience because I totally believe in that. Taking
Mm-hmm.
ourselves out of the self
Mm-hmm.
and having that practice, that thankfulness practice, that gratitude practice, whether it's a minute, whether it's listing three things, whether it's a 15-minute chunk, whether it's reading something, a list aloud, whatever that is
Mm-hmm.
for you. I think that does increase our awareness of others around us
Mm-hmm.
and the humanness that's going on around us, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy in this day and time. Well, especially since 2020, it's so easy just to stay in your little bubble
Yeah.
and just take care of you. And that's really, it's actually kind of celebrated and validated sometimes. And um I just think that we're meant to, we were created to live in community with each other,
Yeah.
and to have relationships.
Yeah.
And I feel like any kind of practice that you can incorporate in your life that makes you more aware of what's going on around you and kind of puts your gaze out instead of so in
Yeah.
is always a good thing.
Right.
I think that's always beneficial. It just makes us um, kind of get out of our own, you know, funk
Right.
sometimes,
You
if
gotta
you
get
will. You
away.
know, I got in my car after I talked to her, and I just like uncontrollably just sobbed. And I was like,
Oh,
"Why am I crying?" I was all by myself. Why am I crying? And then, um, I just realized that the things that she told me, I could identify with.
yeah.
That wasn't my struggle now, but I've been there, and that's
Right.
why I felt so inclined to talk to her, because
Right.
I'm uniquely qualified to help the person that I used to be. So listening to that, and acting on it. It's one thing to hear it, but it's another thing to act on it. And I don't always do it perfect. It just so happens this was one of those days where I felt like if I don't at least say hi to this woman, I might die.
Yes.
I
Yes.
felt that way,
I
you
mean,
know.
can we just take it a step further for what you just said? I'm uniquely qualified to help the person I used to be.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard somebody say, I can't take that for my own. That's not my quote, but I was
It's
listening to a
beautiful.
podcast and I heard it, and somebody said that, and I was like, I am gonna forever take that, because um, as your life evolves, there's always somebody that you're uniquely qualified to help or to serve or whatever that looks like, you
Yeah.
know.
And I think if we take it back to square one about the gratitude thing, how do you connect the self of being grateful and thankful for our stuff and then connect it to serving others? I
I don't
think
know.
it's
It
it's
happens
really
though.
like where's the middle? Like where's the middle part of that? That for me, I look at it and I go, wow, that's it. We start with the self and we end with the others, and all the stuff that happens in the middle is almost like magic, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And it goes back to that fact of what you said. I think I do believe that we are created to connect. We are
Hmm.
created to have community with others. And that's a big piece of this whole platform, the soul goals, is relatability, connectivity, and finding that compassion for others that may be walking the same path that we're in.
Hmm.
Um, and to do that this is the crux that I find myself in. You know, the whole adage we've talked about it before. You have to put your own oxygen mask on in the airplane first
Right.
before you help anybody else. So it's a real balancing act of how much is too much to take care of yourself without being selfish to be able to serve other people, but be able to feed yourself enough so that you have enough to give to other people. You see what I'm saying? That
Hmm.
tipping of the scale back and forth is really interesting to me. Going from that place of sitting down and being listing out all the things that I'm grateful for, the gifts that I have been given, and the blessings that I have in my life for these 15 minutes a day and speaking them aloud, and then you talking about having that interaction at the grocery store like you did. And I just, from point A to point B, how do you get there? What is that middle point? What is that middle area?
I think I don't think you can define it. First of all, like I don't think it's linear. I don't think it's like
Mm, yeah.
I don't think it's like do A, B, and C, and suddenly you notice the things around you. I think that if you've met people like that are super negative, like that are totally self-involved, um, they're selfish. They, I mean, we all meet these people. We all may know these people. We may have these people in our family. It's always everybody else's fault. So there's no gratitude at all in that type of behavior, if you will, in that mindset. Let's call it a mindset because it
Yeah.
can all change. People can change on a dime in an instant for the better
Yeah.
and for the worse. But that mindset is so self. It's so all about me. And even though when you sit down to be grateful, um, it's like, oh, I'm grateful for all of these things that affect me directly. It's still, you're still acknowledging the fact that they're not anything that you um, necessarily, we are all worthy and deserving, but there's some sort of even, I'm just grateful that this happens for me. And I don't even know why it does. I'm just thankful for it. So when you kind of get outside yourself a little bit, I think
Yeah.
you are open to what's going on around you. Where can I what can I do to make somebody else feel this gratitude and this peace in their life? And I
Yeah.
don't. It's not like a like I don't just like that day. I was not running in the grocery store looking like I don't walk around like who can I serve today? Maybe I should. That'd be a great way to live. Like who can I
Well, but
serve today?
I think it
But
speaks a lot to your character and the things that you have cultivated by working on yourself for how many years you've been in this body, that you've really been intently doing that work, and be getting out of your way and being
mhm,
aware of your surroundings and having those antenna up. And then you know what? I guess it's one thing to have those antenna up, but it's another thing to actually do it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, there
yeah,
are times when I've been like, "I really probably should step in," and then I don't.
mhm,
And then
yeah.
2 hours later, I'm like, "Why didn't I?"
Right, and I've done that too. I've had those moments many a time, like, and it'll come back later, and I'm like, "Oh, why didn't I just do that?" And I think I've had enough of those that if it's strong enough, if I just see something, I'm like, I'm not always, but there's sometimes where I feel like I cannot take another step. Like I might throw up if I don't do fill in the blank or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
And it used to make it back in the day when I like was a younger or whatever, if I felt those inclinations, I wasn't always as like brave just to go up to somebody. But when I did a program a couple of years ago where I had to do a random act of kindness every day for 30 days, and
yeah.
I had to meet a stranger every day for 30 days, and that kind of built the brave muscle because
Yes,
I mean, you can do random acts of kindness on the down low, but you can't meet a stranger on the down low. You've got to put yourself out there.
yeah,
And that helped me become more comfortable. I mean, I'm an extrovert by nature, but just walking up to a random stranger, I mean, that scares, I mean, that's weird for everybody. Let's just
right.
face
Agreed.
it. No. And so that helped me kind of build that muscle of just
Mhm.
walking up to people that I don't know.
Right.
Um, However, it's still hard. I still struggle. Like I stood there probably a good 45 seconds, which if you're just standing in the middle of Kroger with your bags, that's kind of a long time.
Mm.
And then I turned around and I looked at her, and then I turned back around and took a couple steps, and then I turned around and I looked at her. I was actually in the way. Two or three people were like, "Excuse me," like they were trying to get. I was like, "Oh, sorry, sorry, sorry." And then, so then I scooted to the side, and then I decided just go talk to her. And
Yeah.
and once I did that, it was like, it was like, I mean, it was like the weight of the world just fell off of me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I think it's just paying attention to um, what we feel like, where we feel like we can make a difference, you
Yeah.
know.
It's
It
being
looked like in
brave.
that, yeah, it looked like in the moment that she was just standing there and the world was just happening around her and she
Yeah.
was just standing there. And I thought something's up. Um, and that's, I think when it looks that clear, it's not always us. Maybe we just notice something, but if it's that clear and that strong, I highly recommend just step right out of that comfort zone. And what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna feel bad because they were noticed.
Right.
If
No, not at
somebody
all.
noticed you, no. If somebody
Yeah.
came up to me and said, I mean, I've had random things happen to me that shouldn't, that helped me, or a conversation or a something,
Yeah.
and never once did I think it was weird because it's what I needed.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's what I needed.
Yeah.
And for me, it's my faith. I feel like, you know, God knew she needs this right now
Yeah.
and just made the way for me.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like for anybody, the universe, whatever you call it. For me,
Right.
it's a faith in a creator and a God that knows what I need right when I need it and is always on time. So
Always
that's
on
how I
time.
look at it. Yeah,
Mm.
that's
And
how
I
I look
think
at it.
I love that. I think the bravery point that you brought up is really huge. And like everybody that's probably listening to this has heard of Brene Brown
Oh yeah,
and all the bravery in being vulnerable and what that shame does when
yeah.
being vulnerable is the shame cycle we get on a lot of times with things. But I think the gratitude muscle you talked about is really a nice entryway to
Mhm.
finding our way into being brave, to be vulnerable in that
Yeah.
point. I really do. And what, like you said, I don't know that we can really define that middle ground between this and that, but there's something there.
Oh yeah. And I had a friend one time. We were talking about the word fearless, and she was
Yeah.
like, "I'm not." She said, "I'm not a fan of the word fearless because, like, I'm going to be fearless." Are you? No, you're going to be brave. You're going to have courage because those
Oh
are the
yeah.
things you do in the face of fear. Because people who do scary things, it's not because they're fearless. It's because they do it, like we've said before, they do it afraid. They do it with courage. It takes bravery. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you suddenly lose all the fear and you can do it. So
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
like
and that
that.
has stuck with me forever. Like, no, we're not fearless. If somebody says you're fearless, no, I'm really not. I
No.
don't think any of us are.
Right. I think
Some
we
of
are,
us,
we're in a world of fears. We're in a world of anxieties. We're in a world of a
mhm.
lot of things coming at us at
Yeah,
any given point in time.
some people are just better at finding the courage to do what they need to do, where other people just need a little bit more help and guidance that way. But we're all staring fear down
Yeah.
the throat
Mhm.
in different, situations all the time.
And we are all capable of finding
I,
it. We are all totally capable of it. And I think
for
that's
sure.
the takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah,
The big takeaway,
100%.
capable and worthy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes. And why not? Why not you, right? Why not me? Why not whoever?
thank
Why
you.
not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why
Yeah.
not you guys? Why not? Why
Mm-hmm.
not? If not you, then who?
Right. It's
Yeah.
you.
You. Do it afraid. Do it afraid.
Right. That's right. And
So
start the.
connecting back to our dots from the
Mm-hmm.
very beginning, I love how we go off on these wonderful side streets because I think it all really connects to the point of how do we work on ourselves? How do we make ourselves better? How do we find those tools that will really do that deep dive work for us as
Mm-hmm.
individuals? What is it that your soul craves? And I have found that when it's difficult, that's usually what your soul needs.
Mhm.
You know what
No,
I mean?
for sure. And people that are struggling, to like struggling in a place where they're super down or depressed or dealing with anxiety, I always, even before this exercise, I always encourage people. Gratitude is an easy grab, even if you think it's not. To
Yeah.
me, having a gratitude practice is kind of a low hanging fruit because if you woke up, you have something to be grateful for. And then from there, you just start adding. If it's just, thank you, I'm grateful I woke up today.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that this piece of toast is available to me to
Yeah.
nourish my body. If it starts with just the obvious, it's just an easy grab to open your heart, open your eyes, kind of move you to a new spot. And it's not, I mean, it ebbs and flows, you know,
Right.
but I feel like anytime somebody's struggling, my first piece of advice is, um, you know, have you tried just sitting and being just, doesn't need to be 15 minutes. Can you write down one thing you're grateful for? Just
Yeah.
one,
Go
you
to the
know?
gratitude. Go to the
Yeah,
gratitude.
I think it matters. I think it matters a ton.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you for sharing those stories, the things that have happened to you over this past week during this whole process,
Of
and
course.
kind of what it means for you,
Hmm.
and that it's a practice that you have regularly anyway. Because
Yeah.
I think it's really it. I know that I can hear you saying how much it's shaped your life and what it does for your days when you do even just a tiny practice of gratitude each day.
Hmm. Yep.
Yay.
I think it matters.
It matters. And do it afraid. Always,
That's right.
always.
There you go.
Yeah. And we're going to make our stories count because we're going to dig in and we're going to do the work that we need to do to make that
Hmm.
happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are
Yay.
people that you love around you. There are people, strangers that you're going to meet on the street that are counting on you. So they don't even know it, but they are. They'll be grateful
Isn't
after.
that beautiful?
Hmm.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Dixie, thank you. I love it.
I love it too.
Yeah. All right, kids. Until next time, I'm Dawn.
I'm Dixie.
We'll see you next time.
All right.